I'm shocked. Jeffrey was in pretty decent shape getting off that gurney.
Let me ask you guys a question. Was that really Jeffrey Wright?
I thought it was a body double.
That's a body double.
That dude was ripped.
Yeah, that dude is ripped and tall. Jeffrey Wright's about 5'10", 5. I'm sure Jeffrey Wright is in fine shape. Fine shape. But that guy was a hunk.
Hi, folks. This is Louis Hertham, the original Peter Abernathy. Hell is empty and all the devils are here on the Shat on TV Westworld podcast with Roger, Gene, and Big V.
Welcome back to the Shat on TV Westworld podcast. This is Gene Lyons, along with my co-host Roger Roper.
I've been beaten down off my high horse.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Yeehaw.
So if you're joining us after hearing our Instacast, we are now on to the deep dive portion. The Instacast was a quick 30-minute bite immediately after the episode 9 of Westworld, the Well-Tempered Clavier. And we are on now to the deep dive, where we're going to expand a little bit on the ideas expressed in the last podcast, and also kind of get on to some of the deeper things that we didn't necessarily see the first time around. We took some notes, we talked to some of the listeners and viewers, and really got some firmer ideas of what we're going to go over. Some things we're going to cover today. What is the Well-Tempered Clavier overall? What does that mean? We're going to talk about what Ford's up to. We're going to talk about whether Logan is the villain or an enlightened character. We're going to talk about why William went on a chopping and hacking spree, and a lot of other topics, including, what Teddy and Dolores' role was at Escalante. So anyway, to kick things off, let's go as we normally do with the topic at hand, the title of the episode, The Well-Tempered Clavier. Obviously, people have related it to music, but the Well-Tempered Clavier is a Bach tune, and people had recognized that. In the sense of the show, I think it's a reference to Clementine. Basically, there's a very clear point that Ford makes as far as Clementine being kind of the player piano that doesn't kill because it doesn't like the music, right? That she is tuned to his liking. He is the creator. But taking it from a historical perspective, that Bach tune was also written by, are you guys ready for this? This comes from a listener, Daniel Westbury, Bernard Weber. There's a composer named Bernard Weber who wrote the Well-Tempered Clavier. So again, this is the show being, very, very clever. It came 20 years after Bach wrote it, so not quite the 30-year loop we're looking for, but credit goes to Daniel Westbury on that. And a clavier, in case you're wondering, it's a keyboard instrument, especially one with strings, such as the harpsichord. So it's not a specific instrument, but a type of instrument.
So is it just like is this just supposed to be clever? Because we learned that Bernard is actually Arnold Weber. Like, the show got super clever and said the anagram of Bernard Lowe was Arnold Weber, and Bernard Weber, Well-Tempered Clavier. Like, is that what it's supposed to be?
I mean, again, I think the deeper meaning is as it relates to Clementine. The idea again that an instrument it's loyal in the sense that it's not going to turn on you. It's an instrument to be played, right? And obviously the idea of being well tempered in reference to a person or a personality is someone that's amenable, right? So the idea that, but also tempered is worn in and toughened. So I think there's significance there. There's symbolism there. Again, is it as strong as Trace Decay? Not quite, but I mean, it's cute.
Well, the main storyline, Ford clearly wants something beyond just the status quo. Do we think Maeve is part of Ford's new narrative, or is Geppetto pulling to the strings? What's going on there?
I think a lot of people have pointed out that Ford is aware of the tiniest little variance that's going on in the park. I mean, he sees Bernard coming from a mile away. He's aware of things going on in Nowhere Land. He seems to know where everything is at all times. I can't believe that something as huge as Maeve reprogramming and adjusting her attributes would escape his attention. Beyond that, there's also the point that Felix and Sylvester notice that she's been tampered with. That someone else is pulling the strings, and I can only guess that a person who would have that kind of power, could be Ford. There are other, culprits that could be doing it. Bernard, for instance, or maybe other high level techs. But it seems like if he's not actually doing the pulling of the strings, Ford is definitely aware of it.
Yeah, and we've seen Ford play the long con before with Arnold or with Bernard. The way he gets him of his own kind of inception, his own fruition, to go out and find the cottage, and then later on to lure Teresa out there. And that was a long, long con where he was feeding him bits of information where he went down to, sublevel 82. He started finding the unregistered host, and all that was in an effort to essentially give Teresa one final option, and then if not, get her out, under the cottage and be able to kill her. He could easily be doing the same thing with Maeve. You give her these extra powers to kind of set her off on the path of freedom, and what does that actually do? That gets Bernard to have his confrontation and to go get the full story, as Maeve asks him to do, and leads to the final Bernard and Ford showdown, where it's the final test to see whether or not Bernard could be trusted and could say, wipe me again. I want to be your partner, and fail. So this could have been a long way around Ford actually trying to find out whether or not Bernard was trustworthy.
People seem to forget the fact that he could just wipe things out and set things up, not just in relation to Maeve's story or Bernard's story, but he has the power to incinerate hosts that are misbehaving. He has the power to roll back their programming, and he's not exactly an idiot when it comes to code. I mean, he can, change them. I mean, he built Bernard, so he's got that ability. So it's important to note that it seems like anything that's occurring is by his design. He's not rolling back every host as they progress. He offers Bernard choice, as you mentioned. He seems to be fond of AI and thinks it's more pure than human nature, and seems to look down upon humans, calling them peacocks and saying they're down in the dirt and all of that. So I think it's important to notice that Ford, there's nothing that we've seen that would indicate that he wants to stop hosts from gaining a degree of independence, whether it's imagined or real.
Well, and here's the question about cold storage with Dr. Ford. Bernard first confronts him and says, I wouldn't say that they're dead, they're merely hobbled. Hobbling, to me, makes it clear that Ford isn't so much as putting them in cold storage for pulling them out of circulation, but they're there on hold for another purpose. They're almost put, in a state of readiness. What's Dr. Ford's plan for those that are sitting down in cold storage? Because they're not dead; they're just waiting for something.
You talk about this whole long con thing. Are we supposed to believe that he understands, or he knew that Maeve was going to be turned up by Felix and Sylvester? Like, was that all part of his game?
I think that Felix and Sylvester increase in bulk apperception only was possible after she had already been modified.
So who modified Maeve?
That's what I'm saying. They make the comment that it's somebody with a shitload of access. So I'm only proposing that it could be Dr. Ford, and he is setting Maeve on a course that would, in the end, test Bernard's loyalty.
Okay, so testing Bernard's loyalty, I don't really understand that. Like, what do you mean testing Bernard? Because we saw Maeve just control Bernard and kind of do whatever she wanted to him.
No, she told Bernard that he should go, if he's going to go seek the truth, to find the whole truth, which then led him to the office, which led him to the proof of what Dr. Ford was doing, which led him to the conversation down in cold storage. And the entire point of that conversation, Dr. Ford was always in power. He always had the back door in. So it was a mere test of Bernard to see whether, once Bernard became aware of everything that had gone on, whether he would choose to be reset back and become his partner again. That was the entire purpose of that entire interaction.
So did Dr. Ford give Bernard the chance to go back to being himself?
Yes,
I thought Bernard wanted to go back to himself. I thought he asked to be wiped
after he had told Clementine to shoot him.
Right.
He'd already wasted his chance. He says, then he starts to beg when he says, Clementine, pull the trigger. And Clementine doesn't shoot. Dr. Ford says, you had your chance. He says, no, please, roll me back. We could do this. We could become partners. Dr. Ford said, hey, you missed that chance.
If I might bring up a Die Hard analogy, it's kind of like when he hands the gun to Hans Gruber, just to see if he'll pull the trigger, knowing that it's not loaded at all, right? He gives him that chance to be the good guy, and as soon as he finds out he's not, he knows Hans Gruber is up to no good. Rest in peace, Alan Rickman.
So now that Dr. Ford has understood that Bernard is not loyal, what's going on with the other two people that he's supposedly imprisoned? We see in episode 9 that he uses Ghost Nation to imprison Stubbs, and we assume he did the same with Bernard and Elsie. Why is he doing that?
I'm not so sure that he's imprisoning them. I mean, we've seen them both attacked in apparently a non-lethal way. So, I mean, I think that we can make the assumption that something's being done to them. But I originally actually thought, and I think a couple other people were on the same train, that it might have been Stubbs who actually grabbed Elsie, like in the sense that he sees what's going on as head of security and he's trying to like protect her, that there's something bigger going on that she should not get involved in. And so once I saw him grab, then I know, okay, he was not involved in this, because he's being grabbed as well. I don't know if they're being imprisoned or maybe they just need to be talked to from negotiated with from a position of power. It's hard to say, but I think a big question too that comes out is why Stubbs went out by himself.
Well, even a bigger question, why all of a sudden did Elsie's beacon start going off? Dr. Ford makes it clear that he controls everything. He shut down Teresa's phone. He shut down her ability to communicate. He had already wiped Elsie. They couldn't find her when they had done a search for her, and they assumed that she was on vacation.
Well, one thing is for certain. The things that we know, if we are basing our entire podcast on things that we know, in their own ways, each park tactician or engineer or someone associated with a park, once they catch on to something fishy with all this data smuggling and strange behavior, they're being taken out. So who's doing that? Is that Dr. Ford? Based on the clues that we know so far, it seems to point to Dr. Ford.
Yeah, I mean, some of the evidence we see that points in that direction is that again that having the control, it's a perfect trap is to set the beacon off and send somebody out there, to snag them. It's people have pointed out over and over again that it seems like security goes from like a high point in episode 1 and then just continuously deteriorates to the point where you've got people going out by themselves. Now, interestingly enough, Elsie was the one who was always kind of telling Stubbs, you don't need to be carrying a gun around. I think Bernard reinforced that too. You don't need to be carrying the gun around. Verbal commands are enough with these guys. And Stubbs always had that faith that he was going to need that gun one of these days, and that, that it was just a matter of time. One string of code between him and disaster. Looks like he was right.
So remember the conversation when Ford and Charlotte, when Ford comes clean and says, hey, the entire test with Clementine was a ruse. I looked at the code. This was just nothing. This was not a fair test. This was Teresa's plan. He then rolls back the power of the park. He says, you know what we can do? We can automate a lot of the security measures. I'm going to hate saying this, but it's very possible that Ghost Nation is his automated attempt to run security on the park. Could Ghost Nation possibly be, I can't believe I'm saying it, working as a security protocol for the park?
Listen, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I know you want me to say it, but I'm not going to say it. I don't think anyone wants me to say it. You don't want me to say it. Gene doesn't want me to say it. Our listeners don't want me to say it. So I'm not going to say it.
I think the word you're looking for, Roger, is based upon a preponderance of the facts. I believe that to be accurate. Something to that effect.
I can't wait till that whiskey comes. I really cannot. It's going to be a beautiful day when that arrives on my doorstep. So I got a lot of tweets, guys, and I want to make sure that I'm not crazy, because after 25 episodes of this podcast, I feel like I'm going crazy. But the question was raised, does Dr. Ford even know about the data being stolen out of the park? I believe that he does, and I'm pretty sure we've seen scenes of that. Guys, and please back me up or tell me I'm incorrect and, side on the error of our listeners.
I think that the entire scene where he presents Teresa's body to Charlotte is a brilliant fuck you, first of all, to Charlotte. He is flaunting the fact that he's aware of what's going on. And then he makes up that bullshit story knowing that she can't call him on it because she's involved with it, right? Like, in calling him out, it begs further investigation of what's going on with this. She now knows that he knows without him even saying it. So, yeah, he's very, very aware and kind of tells them without actually telling them.
Which I think is one of the more brilliant things that this show has done in revealing some of these big answers. They're doing it a little clunky. I think people called it low-level reveals, all your low-level theories. Well, to be honest, these are low levels are the right ones. But when it comes to situations like this with the data being out of the park, it was a very nuanced, well-acted, well-performed answer that we got to Dr. Ford understands what the fuck is going on with Teresa and sabotage without being like, here's a laser guided thing from her arm, Dr. Ford.
Well, he could have, just looked and been like, I know what you're up to, and there's no way you're going to get away with it, and I'm better than you. But he's clever about it. I love when I watch a scene, no matter what the genre, when they communicate, when someone communicates something so cleverly that I sit there and go, oh man, that guy's so cool. Like, I wish I was that cool. And this is one of those scenes where I just was like, man, I wish I could deliver a line like that when I know somebody's up to something.
Yeah, and if he tried to confront her with all the facts he knew, inevitably he would not look as all-knowing and in such a position of power as he would subtly doing it by giving the simple clues that frame it as if he knows everything. He could have giant holes in his theory and could be way off, but just positioning it that way, he left Charlotte with no other course than to believe he is completely onto her. And he vocalizes the fact that he thinks it's a fun sport. It's a fun game when the board tests him. So I think we have no other avenue but to think he's aware of almost everything that's going on, and he knew this.
If the show were to ever lose Sir Anthony Hopkins, would it degrade the quality of the show?
I mean, I don't know that he can stay on for multiple seasons. I don't think he would want to. I mean, he's doing TV, which is not really like it's not really working his way up from what he's done in the past.
I'll counter with he's doing Transformers 6.
Yeah, but I mean, the paycheck on Transformers 6 has got to be massive.
You got to admit, HBO's getting him paid.
Is he just doing a voice on that, or is he like actually in it?
Oh, he's in it.
Oh,
yeah. Michael Bay is the one who convinced him to get on Twitter. Is either Michael Bay or what's the other guy? Mark Wahlberg. Listen, when Sir Anthony Hopkins is in a movie with Mark Wahlberg about transforming robots.
Wait a second. It's a crossover.
That's
what it's all going to build up to. No, but I mean, I really don't. I don't know that he would be around. And yeah, it would absolutely degrade the show. I've said on the Instacast that he has saved entire episodes for me where I was just fed up with what was going on, and then he comes on the screen and just knocks it out of the park. And even people were pointing out that even as the young, as the young Ford, he's still doing it.
Yeah, and those who watch Game of Thrones, spoiler alert, turn off your podcast if you haven't. When Sean Bean is killed early on, everyone was like, man, I can't believe they would kill such a commanding actor. He was a central figure in the entire show, and he was one of the biggest drivers of the plot. But season 2 starts, and you pick right up, and with the way HBO and the way they command talent, anyone who could get Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson at the point where they did the first season of True Detective, it wasn't as in vogue as it is now for major list actors to come in. I think you're not going to get somebody exactly of the caliber, but you will definitely get somebody who will not shortchange the plot in the show.
Are you saying right now that Kevin Spacey is going to join season 2? I'd love to see Kevin Spacey as a host.
I'm surprised he didn't go Jennifer Lawrence.
Shat the movies reference. No, I don't know if the show can survive. I mean, listen, if Bernard, and that's one of the other questions, and I was going to say for the end, but I'm going to move it up, guys. Is this the last time we'll see Bernarnold? Because at the end of the episode, obviously we just talked about it, he takes the gun and at the command of Dr. Ford pulls the trigger, right? We don't see it happening. We hear it. He's down in cold storage. Is this a last, or has Jeffrey Wright signed off? Because he's the only other character on the show that I could, maybe Tandy Newton as well. But I mean, really, when you think of male character actors that they have on the show, you think of, Sir Anthony Hopkins, and you think of Sir Jeffrey Wright.
Ed Harris.
What else can you do with Ed Harris's storyline after this season? I mean, we'll see. But I'm just like, you know what I mean?
Well, Ed Harris.
I thought we were just talking about the.
No, I get it. I understand. I understand. But I'm thinking, like connected to the park, right? I mean, when you think of the depth of the character, is what I'm saying. I apologize. I don't mean to step over you, Gene.
Right, but Ed Harris is one of the actors who we know is coming back for season 2, so his story will continue on. Whereas you're not so sure. And Jeffrey Wright, people have pointed out that on Twitter, as Bernard killed himself on HBO while we were watching it live, well, not live, but I mean, as it aired the first time, people, he had tweeted out, goodbye to the fans and everything like that. So he seems to be indicating that, that'd rather be a rather melodramatic exit if he's coming back for another season. But again, you never know. We didn't actually see him blow his brains out. People have pointed out that the gun may have been, a dummy gun, even that Ford was that far ahead of what was going on. So, who knows?
Would we like to see him be part of Maeve's army?
No. I mean, I no. Unless he's part of Maeve's army only in the auxiliary sense, if he's, operating covertly or something like that. But as far as like an actual part of a force that is attacking, first of all, he's already shown that he really sucks at killing. But chokes and wall slams are not exactly the bread and butter of an army. I think that you got to get a little tougher than that.
No, he could be a general in the rear and actually, be a strategist and actually kind of shape the battlefield. But I don't want him out there just, trying to choke people out. We want people out there splitting heads.
You talk about the choke slam, and you think about the type of killing that we've seen Bernarnold do in the episode leading up to episode 9. In this episode, when he's down there in cold storage with Dr. Ford, and he says, I want to remember everything. Are we to believe, and we talked a little bit about this on the Instacast, are we to believe that everything he's remembering actually happened? Is he now a reliable narrator? Or are those some of the things that he's seen planted by Dr. Ford, and he's seen what Dr. Ford wants him to see?
Yeah, I don't understand why if someone's been jacking with your head for years, then you would sit down and at gunpoint go, you know what, I want you to walk me through my memories. That it makes no sense from a standpoint. I mean, I understand it's a desperate move by him, but he has no reason to believe that Ford is going to be honest about that. And Ford could be further implanting stuff into his head. I don't buy everything that went on there. I think that it was good as far as a walkthrough for the viewers and kind of getting an idea of where these ideas were coming from, how it all fits together for Bernard. But honestly, I don't believe any of it, other than scenes that we've seen from a different perspective. Like the Teresa scene, we've seen it from a different perspective. We were there in the room, essentially. I would buy that. But with the child, with Elsie, I mean, it seemed very disingenuous the way that he was choking her and then looked in the mirror and caught himself in the mirror. It was shot kind of weird. To me, something didn't ring true there.
But let me ask you this. The whole point of Bernard down there with Dr. Ford, right? Dr. Ford, the whole point of it was he was going to see what Bernard did with his consciousness, right? With the understanding, okay, I'm Dr. Ford. You're my trusted robot that I built in the likeness of my mentor and my best friend, right? I built you for a reason. Like, you and I were going to do this thing together. Now you want to know everything? Now I'm going to test you and see if you're going to stick around. All right, you want to know everything? Boom, here you go. And we're going to see how this goes. What does Dr. Ford have to lose? He already knows he's got the back door. He knows that Clem over there with the gun can't pull the trigger. He knows that Bernard can't kill him. He knows he's holding all the cards. Why not just allow Bernard to see everything that actually has happened to him, going all the way back to his first memory? If he's truly Arnold, right? That's the whole big reveal at the end of the episode. We find out that Bernard is Arnold. How do we know that to be true if you're suggesting that Dr. Ford is implanting false memories in him?
Right, that's an excellent question, and you make a very good point. I think the possibility that I would be open to on that is that Bernard mentions specifically his cornerstone. He actually verbalizes cornerstone, and it leads me to wonder. It would make sense that each host has their cornerstone, some stone core truth that they have to, that their entire psyche is built upon, and if that's removed or destroyed, it could cause them to go haywire. There's a cornerstone moment for every single host that you reveal. So Maeve has her cornerstone moment. It's the child in the prairie house. That's her cornerstone. It affects her. No matter what you do to her code, no matter how she's amplified, enhanced, whatever, she's got to base off of that, moment. With Bernard, he is written to base off of that cornerstone moment in the hospital. And I think if you strip him of that, like not allowing him, if he relinquishes it himself, that's one thing. But if you strip him of that by removing that falsehood, because obviously that's not a true thing. He didn't actually have a child. So we already know that it's predicated from the beginning on a lie.
And I think it's also the way they access the memories, which kind of clouds this question. It's not as if you're giving him clear sight of what happened, of history, as if it was a third person watching or security camera. It's all filtered through his experience. Dr. Ford warns him. He says these are all integrated. These by awakening these memories, you might not like what you find, but it also might cause you immediately to go mad. It's tearing at the fibers. So each step he goes back to the hospital bed. He almost has to weave his way through his false memories. And I love, Raj, I love your thought there. Why wouldn't you give him complete insight if you're truly testing him? But there's one scene that makes me wonder what we're truly seeing, where Bernard is talking to his wife on the video screen. There's a momentary flicker and the voice changes from Bernard's wife to Dr. Ford. We never get clarification on who it is. It wasn't like the Dolores flash where her father went to, from Peter Abernathy 1.0 to 2.0, and we can see it. It's such a quick flicker that I don't know in the end who it was who was speaking, so I don't know that I could trust anything else.
So you're saying there might be sprinkles of truth coming through in those memories that he's recollecting. Like, I would assume, based on what we're supposed to believe. Here's how I took it, okay? And this is just our hypothesis. We're not experts here. We don't have any insight into the producers or the screenwriters, what their intentions were here. We haven't interviewed Jonah Nolan or his wife, Lisa Joy, or the person who actually wrote the episode. But are we to assume that by showing that flicker, we're supposed to believe that that person, his wife, was really Dr. Ford's program that was keeping him there, cornerstone locked into his position at Westworld? Like he's the Oz, he's the wizard behind the green screen, so to speak.
Yeah, I think the problem it raises that much like Bernard couldn't see the third figure in the photo because it was a protection mechanism. He's also has that mechanism still in place that won't let him see really what was going on in that memory.
But we see in the flashback, we see him uncover like true realities that we're supposed, like he can see the photo now. He can see himself in that photo. He sees himself as Arnold. He sees himself talking as Arnold to Dolores, which again, I don't want to go to Star Trek nerd supercon here, but how is he remembering his Arnold experience memories if he was just made in the likeness of Arnold?
Well, I don't know that he's remembering that conversation as it was Dolores remembering. Are you talking about the final scene in the episode?
Yeah, in the final scene of the episode, but he understands, he knows that he was created in the likeness of Arnold.
He remembers that because Dr. Ford told him.
So he doesn't remember when the whole narration when he's saying, take me back to my first memory, my very first memory. And then they go to that scene of Dolores walking down or she's already there sitting down. And then you see the figure that turns out to be him going into the room. Are you suggesting that he's not remembering him as Arnold?
There's two different stories being told kind of simultaneously there. So on one half, we have the Bernard remembering the past. Dr. Ford, he takes him back to his first memory. And his true first memory was Bernard waking up on the gurney, sitting up, and Dr. Ford, who's not young Dr. Ford, but he's somewhere in the middle Dr. Ford. You can see in his age. Bernard says, "Who am I?" And he explains to him, he lays it out, that he's an old friend. Arnold and him started the park. He is built in his likeness of Arnold. Together, they're going to do great things. He even is teaching him the nuances of how Arnold would wipe his glasses with the microfiber, which raises other questions is, why is he trying to make him such a spot-on duplicate? And you give him a different name, but he wants all the mannerisms to be accurate. I think that raises some questions down the road, but I don't want to get off that. The Dolores side, then, that's told simultaneously in the episode, is Dolores's trek into Escalante, into the church, down in the basement. She's remembering her multiple times down there when, the lab down there was clean and operational, when it was also had been devastated by, the incident, and then also current day where it's abandoned. She sits down and has a conversation within her own head of her memories of Arnold. That's not actually Arnold. That's her recollection and her recalling the past. And that's the conversation.
So that's more meant for the audience to understand that Bernard is Arnold, Arnold is Bernard, versus Bernard actually having the recollection of him sitting down there with Dolores. Okay, cool. If that's what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm saying that the Dolores memory, we're seeing Dolores's recollection of what Arnold looked like.
We're not seeing Bernard remember him talking to Dolores.
Correct. The whole Bernard waking up on the gurney with Dr. Ford is completely separate.
That's his first memory.
I think it's to help the audience realize that Dr. Ford says, Bernard, I created you in the likeness of, my partner. Then we see, Dolores's memory of Arnold. Oh my God, it looks like the same guy. Okay. So you can realize that physical shape was the same person, but one was the AI replicant and the original was Arnold.
And again, that's the sort of storytelling, cinematography blocking that I appreciate. That's art, right? That's when it's done well, as opposed to just telling us something or having, weird angles and stuff like that. I appreciated that they made it plain enough that people could understand it, yet at the same time didn't just come out and have a character say, Dolores, I am Arnold. You're Dolores. I'm not Bernard yet. Someday I might be, or the parallel of that on the Dr. Ford side of things.
Or he was wearing a lab coat that said Arnold as a name tag.
Or we see the door. We see the door opening and it's got the Arnold Weber nameplate on it.
Oh, that would be terrible.
Well, Big D, so what you're saying is there are some memories we're supposed to believe as he's flashing back, as he's going back through the life of Bernarnold. There are some things that we're supposed to understand, and those are actual truths. Those are things that actually happen. But there's also some lies sprinkled in there. Like, listen, I'm not going to lie. I shit all over your idea that Teresa was a host last night, and then on the second watch today, I was like, ooh, maybe Teresa was a host.
No, I liken that to basically hitting pause when you're watching a video, right? Like he clearly, because to believe that's true, then you'd also have to believe that him killing Teresa happened in the same room as when they were in bed together, because he just stands up and suddenly they're in another scene. It's I don't buy that she was a host. It's just that's how his memory is being accessed, pausing, shifting frame.
Got it. Like you said, and I love the analogy, it's like lucid dreaming. You're controlling your memories as you roll back through them.
Yes.
I like it. All right. So moving on from Bernard and Dr. Ford on to Logan and William. Guys, I got to say, Logan and William's storyline, I took out something that Gene, you mentioned, I think when we were first introduced to this Logan character, that he says a line, and I think the line, and again I'm paraphrasing, is you're not going to like me now, but you're going to grow to love me, you know? And I kind of feel like maybe Logan is really the enlightened one in this whole storyline, not William.
Yeah, I mean, he comes off as an asshole, and at first blush you go, yeah, you know, I mean, I was relieved that there wasn't a gang rape of Dolores, which I thought was what I was about to see, and that would have just ruined me. I could not sit through watching that, and so I'm glad it didn't end up that way. Somehow a gut stab is much more preferable.
Yeah. Also, I watch it with subtitles, and when that scene starts, somebody says like, "Hey, look at that pussy."
Yep.
And I was like, "Oh my god!" Or is the camera going to pan and there's going to be some kind of assault going on? And I was glad they weren't talking about Dolores nude, but they were talking about, you know, Billy tied to the chair.
Yeah, that was a huge relief. And so when Logan does, you know, gut stabber and everything, you have to sit there and think for a second and put yourself in his shoes. So you've gone with your brother-in-law or brother-in-law to be. He's engaged to your sister. He's going to be marrying your sister and entering your family. And you go to a park that you have a stake in, and he says, this one, you know, in a park that's designed to create the illusion of real people that you're interacting with. And he says, this one's special. This one's different. You know, he's starting to exhibit emotions. He's just disappeared for several days with her. And he's starting to say stuff like that. You've got to show him, I liken it to, also, you know, Logan, we've said he's like an experienced gamer, right? And you know, when you're playing a game and you know exactly what you're doing, like maybe it's an RPG or a first person shooter, and then a friend starts playing it and they're just doing the dumbest shit, and you're like really? And they're like, no, check it out. They have to check every box of loot, and you know it's worthless crap, but they're still going through it anyway. It goes back to when they first entered Sweetwater, and he's like, no, don't talk to that guy, don't talk to that guy. You know, he is trying to keep that line clear and treat the park as it is. It's a playground. You're supposed to have fun. Don't get wrapped up in these storylines and start having feelings and thinking they're special. He's trying to guide William. And what does he get for it? He gets cut in the face.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of strip clubs. But I've always had those few friends who believe when they go there that they're going to build some form of a relationship. I'm going to completely just stay away from this one, but I
No, I like where you're going with that though, because it's the same thing. I actually at strip clubs, when a dancer will come over and start like complimenting me, like, oh, that's a really cool tie, and like you guys seem like you're really interesting, blah blah blah. I got red flags going off. I much prefer someone who's just like, hey, this is a transaction. This is business here. And when I do have, friends who go with, and they just get suckered in there, right? They just get absolutely cleaned out. It is kind of like I feel like I need to school them while they're there.
You got to pull a Logan.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is the Hooters waitress doesn't like me, and she only wants to sell me on the bigger beer and more wings? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No. In your case, they actually do adore you, but I'm just saying, most of the time, you're special though. You're different.
I'm definitely going for the extra blue cheese and celery sticks. I just love to be upsold. It's almost, we make a lot of analogies here. It's almost thrown in our face though. It's like when you go to Vegas, right? When you're on a Vegas vacation and you're gambling, you're doing all that. You can't go back to the real world with that shit. You got to snap out of it, right? You can't be going on all day benders at the blackjack table and then hanging out at the DJ hangover. What is it? The after party? What do they call it?
The after party?
No, what do they? No, in the morning, Sundays.
Brunch?
No, Sundays.
Brunch.
No, they have pool parties in Vegas.
Rehab,
thank you.
Yeah.
Detox and rehab with EDM. Like, you can't, that's not real life. And he even says the Vegas line, what happens here stays here, right?
Right.
So I mean that's what he's trying to do. And in that point, like, William's not the hero. William's the dumbass friend that you got to pull back. You got to get him out of the VIP booth before he spends all his wedding money.
Could you imagine again, putting yourself in Logan's shoes, right? If you went to Westworld and you were blowing 40 grand a day, and for you and your buddy, and you went there, you're trying to have a good time, and he's like, I don't want to have sex with anybody, I don't want to kill anybody. This robot's for real. I think I'm in love with it. We gotta get her out of here. We gotta get her out of here. Like,
yeah, it's like, again, using the strip club example, it's taking your friend to the strip club, and then your friend wants to rescue her, right? No.
And the stripper's even saying, "What makes you think I want to leave when all you guys are coming in here?" So we're going to score some serious points with the female audience.
Yeah, I think this is why we need a female counterpart on the show.
Good God.
No, but hold on. This isn't gender. This could be a male strip club as well.
Yes.
We're talking about people who will go to an establishment that is based on a performance. They're acting as though they're interested in you, male or female. It's for money. But yet there's a percentage of the audience, whether they go to Chippendales or they're going to Scores, that will sit there and spend money and will actually feel like there's an emotional connection. And William has become that dream guest at Westworld. He'll come and spend his 40 grand, and you can just give him a little bat of the eye and make him think the hosts are becoming real, and he is a lifetime customer.
All right, well, sticking on that, so William and Logan, they seem to make up, right? Dolores gets cut open. He sees that it's a robot. And then, she goes off on her quest. And Logan and William seem to make up. They have a little bit of a bender with he and the rest of his confederados. And the next morning, Logan wakes up, and lo and behold, Logan has gone on this huge robot killing spree. Why? Why did he do this? What's the purpose of this?
So it's interesting that, a lot of people tweeted about that killing spree, and they did that classic overhead photo of all the dead bodies. And if you notice, it's not just killing, it's dismemberment. He's doing research. You can see the stumps with the machine parts still kind of moving. The servos are still pumping. The hydraulics are still trying to function. He wants to know what's inside of them. And again, to people who believe that the William is Man in Black theory, this is a very clear indicator that he is now concerned with what's going on inside of them. What's hidden in there. He literally wants to get in there and see what's going on. And what's interesting about that is that people have asked several times, how did the Man in Black know to scalp Kissy, to find the maze or whatever? I think that if William is the Man in Black, he's seen this all before. He knows what parts to look in, where things are hidden. And going a step further, it could be that those parts were built in there to be found, which would be really gruesome, but it's a possibility.
Did you also notice that in the scene where Man in Black is tied up with Teddy and they're having a conversation with Angela, Wyatt's men are off on the side doing a very similar thing. It looks like they're opening up the host's legs and they're almost pulling out a component from their legs. It looked like a long shotgun shell. It seemed like they were harvesting parts off of some of the dead hosts. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I couldn't tell what they were doing, but that makes a lot of sense. They're scavenging, which would explain how they're able to survive,
right?
Kind of without being serviced.
That's what I took away from it as well. I mean, I did see them pulling out like what appeared to be like little chicken bones out of arms and legs, and it would make sense, Gene, that they're doing that because they have to repair themselves.
Or they could be pulling out their tracking devices that would allow them to stay off the grid.
Aren't the tracking device? Well, that's true. We don't know necessarily where the tracking devices are, but I mean that would make more sense because these they're not ghost hosts, but are they kind of they're kind of ghost hosts. They're just not Ghost Nation, right? We all agree fundamentally that ghost hosts can't be seen like a poltergeist. Go with me on this. All right, so ghost hosts can be Ghost Nation, but not all Ghost Nation are ghost hosts.
It's like a square and a rhombus.
Mm-hmm.
Or parallelogram.
Yeah. But is this just symbolism for his transformation as Logan is doing all this? I mean, is that just a neat way, like a quick, easy tell to kind of bring this all together, the glue, the wrapping the bow, make it nice and clean for the audience?
It could very well be also that Logan was cleared to demonstrate you're in love with a piece of machinery that maybe William wanted to just do some more investigating to see actually how they worked and see if there was a possibility that Logan was wrong, that there was something more to Dolores than just servos and wires and false memories. He could have been searching for a chance that there was something genuine and real about their emotions.
I like that idea that he's frantically searching for something else in there. It's not necessarily a malicious search. What's interesting is that a couple of people pointed out in emails, a couple of listeners pointed out, and we'll get to those on Thursday, that a person doesn't just flip overnight. Rather, just seeing one incident, no matter how traumatic, if you're strapped to a chair and, see the person you love cut open, that doesn't change your nature overnight. And if it did, we would actually lose the only example of a human being who is decent on the show, right? Essentially, that everybody else who's decent is a host. The humans that you've seen are not terribly good people, innately good. And so it seems like a really bad time to just scrap a guy. But it does raise the question of what is his nature deep down? Is William actually that good a guy? In the sense that was this something that was deep in him all along? As he's cutting open all these hosts, is he kind of cutting open into himself, getting deep in there? And again, getting back to that Ford point of, it's the person you could be, like that, like getting there. It's an interesting thought. I just, I don't buy if the writers did it this way, where he saw that one thing and that changed him into the Man in Black. I don't see that.
Well, moving along throughout the episode, the next people I want to concentrate on is Teddy and Dolores. In the episode, we learn a little bit more of Teddy. We're seeing some more flashbacks, seemingly going back to the incident in the town Escalante, correct? That we know now that's the town where the original square dancing host, and seemingly where the incident that's been talked about. Are we in consensus that that's the incident?
I'm not sure, like 100%, but I'd say, like, I hate to put percentages on it, but like 95% sure that's the incident. It's the biggest incident we've seen. And some people have said, oh, maybe the incident is, Logan being killed or William being killed. I think that the incident is something horrible. I mean, why else would you bury an entire city other than, what's the explanation? Oh, there was an incident.
Yeah, and I think what gives me also some confidence is this is the first episode where we've seen the incident does not only affect the guests and the host on stage in the park. It also shows that this incident went into the offices, into the behind the scenes, into the body shop. It affected all aspects of the park, behind the scenes and up front.
Well, you're jumping ahead, Big D, because I think that's a big point of the episode where a lot of fans did not understand that. So I want to save that. I want to table that if I could just for a second. So Teddy, we find out in episode 9, some of his new narrative that was programmed by Dr. Ford of him in town with his Sergeant Wyatt going through the town, killing soldiers, Union soldiers. We find out that there's actually some truth to that narrative. And that truth is Teddy was the one killing the Generation 1 hosts in the incident. Right? That's what we were shown in episode 9. Are we in consensus that actually happened?
Yeah, the angles seem to match up. The street that he was going down, the way he was firing, the surroundings, and then also where Dolores' position would have been from what she witnessed or what her memory is saying that she witnessed. The angles match up. I can't interpret it any other way. And especially it seems that they revealed, his clothing change, I think, was a big reveal that he's now seeing with a bit of clarity what he actually was wearing, what actually happened.
And he actually sees the Angela bot there hanging out on top of a downed, I assume her square dance partner, correct?
Yeah, whoever her partner was, first gen.
Right. Okay.
But we also then can see that those two have a relationship, which is referenced in the future, where Man in Black, Teddy is tied up, and Angela says, "Hey, Theodore, we haven't seen you in a while." This is hearkening back to the origin of their relationship. Teddy shoots everyone. He's there with Angela.
Right. Well, Angela's a Generation 1 bot.
Right. So
as is Theodore, Teddy.
But other than the scene in The Man in Black with the rock where she stabs Teddy with the arrow, this is the first time we've seen them together.
Well, it's the first time that we've been shown that Teddy was a Generation bot.
Correct.
Yes.
And it also then establishes the relationship between those two.
What is their relationship?
Well, he kills her.
Well, that they were original. We had wondered, not only just is he a first generation host, but did he have interactions with her? Because there was a point where she was the greeter in the park, where she was, now she's part of Wyatt's gang. We've never seen that her and Teddy's paths have crossed. This is confirmation that they have.
Yeah, they've crossed, right, in the incident. At least, at the minimum. Okay, all right. So, people are tweeting us, and there's a lot of, and again, I don't want to get into too much speculation here, but I do have another Raj theory that I promise I won't boast if it comes true. But I want to float this through you guys, and I want to preface this that being the good, try to be original host that I am on Shat on TV that you, the fans, have grown to expect, I do not read viewer email, and I don't go on Reddit until after the deep dive. Okay, so stick with me. This is a Raj puzzle piece of this together without any of his own help. We know that Dolores killed Arnold, right? We were told that. Yes, we just established that earlier on in this episode. Now, thanks to Angela's mind games, it's apparent that Teddy wasn't necessarily killing under Wyatt's spell. Right, he was doing this on his own volition, or possibly being controlled by someone else. It could have been a glitch, or did Arnold order him to mutiny? So the theory that I have, guys, is during this Escalante flashback, where we know that there's something more to this Union soldier shootout, that it's actually what really happened is Teddy is going through the town and he's shooting up people. We've also seen Dolores remembering her in that same Escalante shootout. We see her with a gun. We see her pull it up to her head. We also see Teddy remembering Wyatt, the Wyatt character, dragging out the general character and then taking the gun and shooting him in the back of the head. Now, putting all these pieces together, I believe that Dolores is the Wyatt character. I believe that Dolores will be revealed as the one that's dragging Arnold out, shoots him, then turns the gun upon herself. Now, there's now, when I floated this idea today to you, Gene, you asked me to get together some 5 facts or some 5 things that we know, because, listen, if you're going to pull out something like this, give me some things. All right, so here's my 5 things. Dolores and Teddy are inexorably linked together, right?
Correct. Yep.
They're in that same loop. And seemingly, if I were going to place someone that we're going to do this mass murder incident situation, I'd probably put them on a pretty kind of terrible loop for them. I kind of like a punishment loop, if you will. And I'd also ensure that the Dolores would not be able to shoot a gun or kill anything.
Okay, that's 2.
That's 2. Then we see someone saying, remember. What does Dolores do? She goes out by the barn. She digs up the gun that, in my theory, she used to kill Arnold.
Okay, there's 3.
All right. Teddy's backstory of Wyatt having crazy ideas, going off and doing crazy things. We see Dolores remembering that she did that. Her crazy ideas led her to this church where she was surrounded by other crazy robots, having crazy narrative, inside voices talking to them, right?
She's out on maneuvers.
Right?
Got it.
Dolores was
That's 4.
That's 4. My fifth one was Dolores remembering shooting herself. That's my fifth. And then also her remembering going through the little offices and seeing all that, which we'll talk to now. But I'll stop there. And again, if this comes true, I promise I didn't read it on Reddit. I promise I put this all together. And I promise I won't gloat on the next Instacast. What do we think of this?
So I have read some listener mail this week, and there are other people who are of the same mindset. They do believe that Dolores and Wyatt are one and the same. I can see the argument, and taking it a step further, we've seen that hosts will block, memories or visions or sights that don't match their worldview, that don't match their programming, that could be harmful to them. So it's very easy to believe that Wyatt, especially if he's supposed to be kind of Dolores's loop keeper, he's supposed to keep her in her loop, that you wouldn't want him to be able to remember her slaughtering people, right? There would be some dissonance there. That being said, Dolores is there's two ways that this could happen, and that's what I'm curious about now. Is it that it was actually Dolores in a female body that he remembers as a man, like there's just a superimposition there, or was the other way around, where it was actually a man's body and then now it's Dolores. The latter seems less likely, and part of the reason why is that we've seen with Clementine and Abernathy, the name stays with the job, right? So Wyatt was a job, it's not a person. Dolores is a job, not a person. And so in that sense, the argument that you could see to the counter argument, though, would be you see the blueprints, and in the blueprint she's clearly labeled as Dolores.
No, what I'm saying is Wyatt was a narrative that was programmed by Dr. Ford, in my theory.
So there never was
a Wyatt. There never was a Wyatt.
I like it.
They renamed and programmed into Teddy's brain that he's supposed to see a brother. He's supposed to see a man, right? But it's really actually Dolores in real life. We've never seen the gender swap glitch out before, but I think we might. And again, I could be completely fucking wrong. But
we got hints of it this episode.
We did. We did get hints.
Bernard's wife. That Bernard's wife was possibly also Dr. Ford, so that it's plausible.
It's plausible.
Could we think of other characters, though, that could also fit the bill? Like, for instance, is there anybody else that also would make sense? I mean, I would posit that there could actually just be a Wyatt. That's the simplest answer, right? That there actually was a Wyatt character.
Well, who else have we seen in a central pivotal role in this entire awakening and what's going on in the park now? It's Peter Abernathy. Peter Abernathy is an original host. We've seen him multiple times when they're referencing the bicameral mind, the multiple roles that he's had, whether it was sheriff, which is also kind of funny that we now know that the sheriff role is how Teddy views himself in this scene where he's mowing down the townspeople. He's wearing a lawman's badge. We know that Peter Abernathy early on had played the role of sheriff. It would make complete sense that Peter Abernathy also would be out there. And when we see the scenes later on of the under the church, Peter Abernathy is the one recognizable host other than Rebus, who is still intact in one of the versions of the rollback. But the photo also is another thing. It's very convenient that he finds it on his farm, and it just was happenstance that it's there. I could easily see either an earlier Peter Abernathy / Wyatt plants it there so later he recalls it, or someone puts it there to trigger him remembering what really happened. But that's too convenient.
I just had a thought of how horribly delicious it would be if we don't find out in episode 10. Like if they do the full 90 minutes and we don't find out, and we gotta wait until 2018
oh god
find out who the hell Wyatt is.
They do a Walking Dead cliffhanger that we got to talk about for 18 months.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you were talking about the relationship with Teddy and Dolores. If you have these two pivotal characters in the incident, whether it was Dolores shooting Arnold and then the Wyatt character, and wouldn't it be ironic that you then put them as father and daughter, so that their two loops are continuously joined and they essentially keep each other in check, and there's no chance of them going off and interacting and reviving that memory?
I think an interesting question that we should be keeping an eye out for as well as we go into episode 10 is if this happened, if you had, this massacre, this incident, why wouldn't you absolutely destroy any host that was doing this? That seems like be the first thing you do. Like, okay, well, that one, but it kind of gets back to the question that we saw, I think, in episode 2, which was, do you want to just shut it down, or do you want to find out what went wrong? Because
Right.
if you just destroy it, then you're not able to predict or diagnose what the hell went wrong in the first place. And it could be widespread, and you just don't know. It's a matter of time. They're all time bombs.
Listen, there's been a lot of articles, and we even talked about on the Instacast how this show is towing a very fine line of becoming almost unwatchable because so many people guess the outcome, right? And then it becomes not fun to watch. And listen, the double-edged sword is that this podcast wouldn't exist. People wouldn't even listen to it if there weren't elements of us dissecting the show and making theories and predictions, right? I mean, that's an element to it. It's the lost factor. Gene, you are disagree. You're shaking your head in disbelief, though.
Yeah, I mean, I would counter that you can have just as strong a podcast, just as strong a show if you're talking about a complicated show, a complex show with lots of moving parts that just bears explanation. I think a lot of people listen in, and people I've had conversations with, they're just, and people that I reach out to on Twitter I literally will look on the Twitter feed and see people who are just like, I have no idea what I just saw. I don't know what the fuck just happened. Westworld is making my brain hurt. And I'll just message them and be like, hey man, we've got you covered. And it's not just us, but now we've kind of put together, the awesome part about it is there's this whole community now that can this hive mind, they can figure out these very complex problems. But it doesn't have to be mysteries necessarily. It could just be simply like, what the hell did I just see? And that's the mark of high art, is that it bears interpretation.
I guess what I would love to see, and we would just love to all be surprised. Like this Peter Abernathy coming out as Wyatt. I'm not sure if anyone else has suggested that, but that would be awesome. It'd be a super mind fuck, and also we'd see more Lewis Hertham, our boy, our favorite actor on the show. Listen, if they replace Sir Anthony Hopkins with more Lewis Hertham, I'm in. Sign me up for 5 seasons.
We then also have to ask Lewis to kindly reprise his role for our intro and say he is Wyatt. This is Lewis Hertham.
That's right.
Wyatt.
That's right. That would be amazing. That would be dope.
I mean, but wouldn't you be slightly wounded that he didn't tell us? I mean, I'd feel a little hurt.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, totally.
No, come on. Are you the type of guy who wants to know what you're getting for Christmas? Are you the one who's like peeking like underneath the wrapping paper? I wouldn't want to know that.
Big D, being Middle Eastern, I grew up without Christmas, so yeah, I want to know. I want to know all the time. I don't like surprises.
Surprising because you're Middle Eastern, you don't like surprises? Or surprises because of you personally?
It's a double whammy, actually. I just don't like surprises. And also in the Middle East, surprises are generally not good.
All right. So as we wrap up this Dolores conversation, this was a big source of people asking, what the fuck is going on? So in last week's episode, we talked about the different time frames, right? So it's one linear timeline. We all agree on that. It's not Back to the Future 3. It's one timeline, but we're seeing different instances on that timeline called time frames. So I thought what we do, guys, with your help, is let's dissect this scene to better explain what's happening with Dolores as she walks into the church. Okay? So I'm going to label these. So we're going to call this TF34. That's time frame 34 years in the past. With me so far? That's the naming convention. So TF34. Then we're going to go TF30. Then we're going to go TF0. That's current. Does that make sense for everyone?
Got
it.
it.
We have TF0, that's current, TF30, 30 years in the past, and then TF34. Are we good? Now, for our audience, before you start sending in emails, this is just strictly so that we can explain and break it down to the people who were confused by this. So TF34, we're seeing around the time of the incident that happened with Dolores and Generation Bots. That's TF34. Got it? TF30 is William, Logan, Dolores. Got it? That's TF30. TF0, that's current timeline. That's older Man in Black. That's Charlotte Hale. That's older Dr. Ford and Bernard, who just found out that he was Arnold, and Maeve. All right? So those are our time frames. Big D, you were right. I'll apologize to you. I'll apologize to the fans. You're correct in that the majority of the show, we have been seeing TF0 and TF30. We see flashbacks and glimpses of TF34 and some others throughout the time frame, but the majority of the show has been living in TF30 and TF0. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. We on a consensus agreed when Dolores is seeing herself in TF0, TF30, and TF34 as she's on her journey. So she's seeing herself in the present, in 30 years ago with William, Logan, and others, and then also seeing herself as a Generation 1 bot during the incident.
Yeah, the only thing I want to really also kind of differentiate here are was it TF34?
TF34.
TF34 is right on the border where things were okay and the incident. So TF34 is both her memory of walking down the hall where it is operational, where
Yes.
there's staff, where they're
Yes.
doing narrative, and it is also the same time frame as the bodies on the floor.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to get caught up in those, little nuances. But yes, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. For the sake of this conversation, that's exactly what we're going for. Okay? All right. So when Dolores gets into the city, which has now been resurrected. So for those of you who didn't catch that the city that was swallowed by sand was resurrected by Dr. Ford and his land movers, guys, that actually happened. Yes? So we agree that he's resurrected the city.
They're very precise, by the way. I wanted to point that out, that these massive machines somehow managed to not destroy any. I'm assuming the buildings were reconstructed, not.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they were. All right. So he's resurrected this land, right? So it's no longer buried in TF0. So when she's walking and she sees the empty city that was swallowed by sand, the original place where she, the incident happened and she was square dancing, that's TF0 when no one's around. That's present day.
Bingo.
When she walks in and she sees bodies hidden the floor, she sees people in the church with her, wigging out, hearing voices in her head, that's TF34.
Right.
Okay. So when she walks into the church, we see a glimpse of her in TF34 when there's other Generation 1 hosts bugging out. Yeah?
Correct. And this is explained by her outfit change.
Yes.
In TF34, she is the rancher's daughter. She's back in her blue Alice in Wonderland dress. When we see her jump ahead into the TF0, you'll see her back in her Indiana Jones archaeologist attire, I think was what we wanted to call it.
Kind of, because I think when she walks into the church, she's still wearing her Indiana Jones gear. So she's seen all those hosts. She's remembering it. She's still wearing Indiana Jones gear. I think what you're saying is when she goes down the confessional elevator and she sees the aftermath of everything, of dead bodies, dead technicians, dead hosts, she's still wearing her Indiana Jones gear. Then she moves across a wall or a partition, changes into her Alice in Wonderland dress, and now we're seeing before the incident happened. It's still TF34 for the sake of this conversation, but we're seeing how the park operated before the incident. So we're seeing, old Peter Abernathy. We're seeing a young Wayne Rooney, Dr. Ford come through the halls, traversing and all that, right? So what we're seeing, for those who didn't get it, she's seen the steps that she's already taken. Then when she comes back up the elevator, she's back in her Indiana Jones gear. She mutters the word William. Doors open. It's Man in Black. That's TF0.
Bingo.
So that's what happened.
Well done.
All right.
I think it's there. I think as long as all this is based on what we've seen on screen and based on as best we can determine the facts, it's a logical laying out of the facts and what we see.
Also, the structure that you described is corroborated by the schematics we've seen of how they used to use the graves for transporting bodies out. That basically they'd bury them there. They would drop down into a tunnel system that would then have them serviced. So this was the old way of doing things at Westworld before they apparently just had the bunny suits come out and grab your bodies. So in essence, it matches up the timeline and the methodology used. So I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And is she definitely seeing present day when she speaks to the memory of Arnold? She's in TF0, correct?
Yeah, she's in TF0. You can tell by the condition of the room that it looks like the water fountain's kind of been damaged. There's garbage on the ground. You can see that the room has been abandoned for some time. So yes, that's TF0. She's sitting alone, and the memory of Arnold, she's seeing him sitting in the chair, but she's alone in the room.
Can we also just take a moment and point out that scene, the acting again? This show has just moments where the performances just shine, and that connection between Evan Rachel Wood and Jeffrey Wright was just brilliantly delivered. Very, very simple in the writing, but so well executed in the acting. I loved that scene.
Yeah, where Dolores comes to the realization. Essentially, she's sitting alone in a room, and she recalls what happened. She recalls Arnold's dead, why Arnold can't help her. And then the realization that she is the one who caused his death. It's written on her face, and she doesn't need to beat us over the head with the information. We can see it and feel it.
In addition, you notice that Jeffrey Wright is executing Arnold as a very slight variant of Bernard, right? Looks like Bernard, moves like Bernard, and all that, but there's a tranquility there. There's and you can tell that that Arnold is in his nature. You could tell that were he able to survive, being killed, that the malice isn't there, right? He understands why he is where he is. Essentially, I got that sense of calm and resignation from the performance. I loved it.
You can see simply in the way he sits in the chair. He's more engaged with Dolores. He's leaning forward more. You can feel the humanity, and to do that in like a 10, 15 second scene, that's fantastic. And that to me is better than giant explosions and Gatling guns and people on horseback. And that is the essence of what makes the show great for me.
Someone tweeted at us that it wasn't any of that. It was just the hairline. It was just the hairline. Like they couldn't get the hairline right on the new bots. In the original movie, it was the hands. In the show, it's the hairline.
God, and I don't even want to go, because people have accused me before of talking about dudes. I'm shocked. He was in pretty decent shape. Jeffrey was in pretty decent shape getting off that gurney.
Let me ask you guys a question. Was that really Jeffrey Wright?
I thought it was a body double.
That's a body double.
That dude was ripped.
Yeah, that dude is ripped and tall. Jeffrey Wright's about 5'10", 5. I'm sure Jeffrey Wright is in fine shape. Fine shape. But that guy was a hunk.
Or maybe were they trying to show us that was a young, Bernard model? That fresh off the assembly line, he was ripped like a chip, and then later on, they just kind of softened him up a bit.
Quit trying to make it happen, Big D. Quit trying to make it happen. Quit. I'm gonna pull you out of the VIP booth. I'm gonna pull you back into real life.
Are you telling me he doesn't have feelings for me? Are you telling me?
Do not go to the ATM machine. Whatever you do, don't use the ATM machine.
There's no sex in the champagne room. No. Is there anything else we want to talk about? Dolores, Bernard, Teddy, any of this? All right. So to put a ribbon on this conversation, we see a hand that is turning the phonograph, right? We don't know who it is. But we know, based upon what we've been told, we know that music has a direct implication, or it has a direct effect on the hosts and their emotions. We've seen Dr. Ford used music to calm down hosts. Do you think that it can also be used for malice, for mutiny, for something like that, like the incident to happen?
I mean, that would be a really shitty design. Like, I'm just saying, like, oh, we got a park with, hundreds of androids. And by the way, if you play the wrong song, they're going to start killing everybody.
If you play Coldplay, everyone just starts shooting each other in the head.
I'd start shooting people for sure.
No, but it could very well be that early on when they were trying to perfect it, they do this in shows and movies right now. They try to cue us as to what emotion we should be feeling by the music. If they cue up the giant orchestral swell, we're supposed to feel love and emotion, and once they start beating the drums, we're supposed to feel kind of the aggression. This could have been a real subtle way that they were trying to build and to control the narratives, by the use of music, and in a rudimentary way. And it would make sense that early on they were trying anything, and it wasn't like this was intentionally done to fire them up and cause mayhem, but it may have had an unintended effect of raising their aggression.
What if, I'm just throwing this out there, what if Ford programmed Teddy and Dolores to be the Judas steers, take out his partner Arnold, and then he calmed them down through the use of music, and that's a young Dr. Ford turning the crank to calm them down and get them back in their loops.
I mean, I could see it happening, but I stand by my assertion that I don't think Dr. Ford wanted to kill Arnold. I just don't. It doesn't feel right to me. The character taking out another human, that was his partner. He seems to have an affinity for Arnold, and really Arnold seems to be the only human that he actually likes.
I could see if Arnold truly wanted Dolores to become aware and sentient. I could see a way that he actually had suicide by host. That the ultimate way you could test whether a host had become aware and become conscious is to put her in a situation that would eventually lead to his own death. So I don't think it's too far of a stretch that he could have had a hand in what caused Dolores to shoot him. And that may have been his actual goal. That, he was depressed. He saw what it was becoming. And that if he hoped by Dolores choosing to violate all of her codes and her programming and actually take his life, would be somehow freed and prove that she was conscious.
Is that pretty much what the maze is? It was just a test for sentience designed by Arnold. Like the first bot that kills him, that shows that, they want to destroy their maker. They want to meet their maker. They want to kill them. They want to terminate them. That's the ultimate, top of the pyramid of consciousness. And this was just all designed by Arnold. I think that's what you're saying. And listen, I would have to agree with you just because people inevitably keep telling Man in Black, you're human. It's not for you, buddy.
I think there's two ways that could go, and more than two ways, but two strong directions. One of them, it could be just that this was actually the only method Arnold had to get them to the point of being self-aware, to get them to the point of being sentient, is actually they had to go through this process. That's what the maze is. He couldn't do it any other way. There was no bit of programming. It was actually a path that they had to take, which kind of speaks to some of the creation myth and spiritual, undertones of the show. Another one could be simply that Arnold maybe saw it coming. Like maybe he knew that in pursuing what he was trying to accomplish, he might get offed, and he wanted his children essentially to have a path anyway, to even if he were killed, that there would be some sort of way for his legacy to keep on. Because this is the thing, is that Ford cannot remove Arnold's code. It's clear that Arnold's code is what makes things tick. Like he cannot get rid of it. If he gets rid of it, he gets rid of everything, right? There's, it's said several times, most notably with Bernard, that Arnold's code is in him, and and that was not written by Ford. So he can't get rid of it. He has to live with it. So this could all be just him trying to figure out ways to manage it.
You talk about the spiritual and the creation story and the myth that's interwoven. The last thing I want to talk about is what's been compared to Eve, right? The person who bites the apple from the tree of knowledge, and Maeve is basically Eve with M.A. at the front of it, right? We see her continuing on with her plan of domination and getting out of the park and escaping by explaining everything not only to Bernard, but also to Hector, right? She opens up Hector's eyes. We talked about how Maeve is doing what we feel a good leader does, which is allow the individuals to seek the truth and find the truth on their own, and then eventually come back to her for guidance, right? But what is Maeve's ultimate goal for being burnt up and that whole scene in the tent? There was a lot of questions that was raised on Twitter. Why is she doing this? If she's organic, if she's a flesh bot, wouldn't that be counterproductive?
So kind of building off of what I said on the Instacast, as far as her wanting to get back into the facility, into the Mesa, to be worked on in an area that's not just the simple butcher shop, right? She wants to be able to get access to somewhere where there would be a complete rebuild. Part of that is conceivably, especially if there's an explosive in her spine, that fire would cause such extensive damage that there would have to be a complete rebuild. That we're not talking a sew up job, but back to the basics with her. And in that sense, I could see a situation where she gets back in there, maybe Felix and Sylvester there to meet up with her, and now it gives them an excuse to get into the spine area. And to swap that all out, but she's got to find a way. I mean, she's made it clear her goal is to get out. She's got to find a way to get that explosive removed.
I just came up with this now, and I hope it's not right, but we know her end goal is to escape the park. I think this could be one of those typical bank heist tropes where you have the entire bank crew who's in there, perpetrating the heist, and they create some kind of a distraction where all of the hostages and everybody has to flood out in one motion, and the police kind of lose track of who is who. If Maeve sets a giant wildfire in this resort, and all of a sudden you have hosts, guests, employees, everyone fleeing the park for their lives, how would you differentiate who was who? It would be a perfect situation where a host could theoretically escape without the C4, if she can find a way around that you could just overwhelm the gates and have host make it out into the world.
I love that you keep going back to this wildfire. You're obsessed with this wildfire idea. She's going to burn up. So what?
She's going to get out of the tent. You didn't see her catch on fire. She was just having some host coitus.
Okay, let me tell you how.
Did you see her on fire?
No, let me tell you how most people would start a wildfire. They would not get in the middle of it. They would start the fire away from themselves. And I'm all for symbolism and passion and all of that, but come on, she's setting herself on fire. It's self-immolation.
Nothing would be more Maeve than to set a wildfire while having sex on top of the safe and then walking out as the entire forest goes up in flames.
Well, let me ask you guys this, right? Did anyone feel bad for Hector in this whole situation?
Absolutely.
Like, poor dude just had his whole entire existence called into question. He sees that he's a robot. Then this hot, wonderful, person that you're going to have sex with, she wants to have like really hot sex, robo-sex with you. Great, fantastic. We're about to do this. Then she knocks over a kerosene lantern and is going to burn you up so she can go on with her plan. Poor dude. Okay. There's no indication that Maeve turned down his pain threshold or anything like that. Like, what are the worst ways you'd want to die? For me, burned at the stake, got to be at the top of the list. Regardless if I'm having sweet sex with Maeve or not, I don't want to be burned. Like, so he's going to go, we know that she's reduced her pain tolerance. So for her, it's nothing. It's like being shot up with she's entire numb. She could be burned, whatever. She'll keep going. That poor guy, I feel really bad for Hector is what I'm saying here, guys. I took 30 minutes to explain how bad I feel for Hector.
You guys are crazy. Maeve is a survivor. Maeve would not do anything that would hinder her ability to survive. A crispy, burned up Maeve is not going to blend back into society. She's not burning herself.
But we've seen this before. We've seen this before in the bank heist gone awry when she asks Hector to dig the bullet out of her, and then they get shot up intentionally, right? She's been killing herself over and over and over again. She's a survivor, but she keeps ending up on the butcher block. So clearly she has no problem dying. She said it before. She's died 1,000 times.
Well, what else would you do? Like, she knows she's a marked host for decommission, right? She knows that. What do you do? Like, I used to work in insurance many, many lifetimes ago. The first thing that car thieves would do once they're done joyriding, once they've got everything they need out of a car, they burn it. And they do that so it's like Krispy Kreme. You can't come back from it. Like, it's a total loss. People burn bodies so they can't be identified. Maybe she's doing this to be smart. Maybe she's like, you know what? I don't want the people to identify my body. I don't want it to be identified that it's a Maeve, so that Felix and Sylvester, they already got down on the big 3D printer down in the tech. They've already got another Maeve robot coming up. They're just going to pop in some new consciousness. She doesn't have the C6 explosion anymore. Now she's free to go.
All you have to do is trade out the VIN numbers.
Exactly.
And make a Maeve, make it, maybe Armistice. That could be also, I like that idea, that she's going to make it look as though Maeve died in the fire, but yet Crispy Maeve is down there actually with the gods, and she can actually wreak her mayhem.
Do you think it's possible, this is just a weird theory, and do you think it's possible that that's why Wyatt's crew is all covered up? Like, they're all
crispy?
Are they all Crispies?
Could be. I like it. Well, that wraps up all the topics that I had. Again, guys, it's another supersized episode of the deep dive and Shat on TV. But listen, it happens. Sorry, apologize, Gene. I know we like to keep it to 60.
Sorry, did you apologize to me or asking me to apologize?
No, I'm apologizing to you.
Oh, okay. Apology accepted.
Nice. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about before we shut down and we start responding and getting ready for the top emails of the week for the Telegraph?
Yeah, this is the last chance for you to use your Shat 20 Cyber Monday discount on the T-shirts. We will be closing out all the sales and pre-orders on Wednesday. So make sure you get them in if you want to get a nice jazzy Christmas gift or a holiday gift for those loved ones around you.
Also, I've read through dozens of emails that came in for the Telegraph. Do not miss this Thursday's Telegraph. There's some amazing stuff on there. There's criticism of the podcast. There's criticism of the show. There's appreciation of the show. There's people really fine-tuning their theories and nailing it down. And there's just some really astute observations of things that completely, from everything I've seen, were completely missed by everybody who's watching the show. So there's some really brilliant stuff in there. It's a smart one. It is a smart Thursday podcast. There's even a poem, which we might get to, so that's pretty exciting. So anyway, definitely listen in for Thursday's Telegraph. It's going to be brilliant.
And for those of you who've never listened to the Westworld Telegraph, essentially we take the top 20 emails of the week, we read them, we respond to them, and then we post them on our website, which is shatontv.com. If you want to be part of that, you still have time. You can email us. We're hosts at shatontv.com. Also, while you're on our website, as Big D mentioned, you can click on the store, and there you'll see our 3 different designs. We have the Pyramid of Consciousness, we have the Maze, and we have the Abernathy Farms Milk is for Growing Boys. Our 3 very high quality t-shirts. They're printed on next level 60/40 blends, so they're soft if you're like Gene and you have puffy nips and you like to run, so it's not like cardboard. They're not like cheap t-shirts. And if you use the offer code SHAT20, that's the number 20, SHAT20, you will receive 20% off, and the shirts are only $20. We'll ship them to anywhere in the U.S. continental, but if you're in Canada, if you're in Australia, or you're in the UK or somewhere you're in Europe, and you really, really, really want a t-shirt, email us and we'll work something out. We'll find a way to get you a shirt. So that email again is hosts at ShatOnTV. You can find us everywhere fine podcasts are found. We're on iTunes, Google Play, We're on YouTube. You can download Overcast or any other podcast app and find us there. If you're on iTunes, please, if you have a moment, take a phone from a friend or a coworker, give us a 5-star review. It really helps out the podcast. And make sure you share it on your social media. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. On behalf of my two co-hosts, Big D and Gene Lyons, this is the Raj. We will see you on Thursday for the Westworld Telegraph. Thank you so much for listening. One more episode to go. We can't wait to hear all the great things you have to say. We'll see you again soon here in Westworld.